Good evening. I would like to call the regular scheduled meeting of the Board of Finance for Monday, April 15th, 2019 to order. First item on our agenda is public forum. Anybody wishing to address the board in public forum? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go to item number 2, approve minutes. The only minutes we have tonight to approve are the regular meeting minutes of March 18th, 2019. Do I hear a motion? Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any corrections or comments?
I have on page 1.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Receive audit report in the second paragraph, last line, when Nicoletta McTeague was giving her presentation, the sentence that says she added that it's better if it is all included in the management system, but I would like to add, but that it will take some time to do that.
Second paragraph.
Second paragraph, last line.
Okay.
And then just further on down,
Mm-hmm.
where is it? In section 5, revenues.
Yep. Go ahead.
The last line again, the sentence begins, last year between March and June, they brought in over $900,000 due to a number of delinquencies. And I think it should be that year.
Or
last year.
or last year.
Yeah. But all in all, they're doing well. And then the last revision I had was on page 6, second paragraph from the top, just a transposition of the R and the D and the U.
I knew you were going to get that
in
one.
Linda's name. So just don't want them to think there was anybody to think that somebody other than Linda was given the presentation.
How could you?
So.
How could you? Does anybody else have anything? I have one item. Bottom of page 9, under new business. Just the way the tense was in the third sentence where it just says to play softball in Italy and 2 staff members are asking. At that point, I would just strike out if I would allow them and just continue on with to take vacation. And actually, there were a couple of things in here that we had requested more information on. I did check, we received the information that was requested. And another question that was addressed in the Standing Building Committee minutes. So I'll address that probably when we get to it. Anybody else?
Yeah, I had one question of Linda and whether the Board of Ed was aware of any more retirements as of this moment. I don't think you responded to that one. You respond to everything, but not, I don't think to that one.
We have,
There were 3
3 at one time.
last meeting.
yeah, I think I don't think we've really gotten any more.
Okay.
We're still there, but it's early.
Darling.
Okay, anything else?
Move their acceptance.
Okay, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay. Correspondence. Item number 1, go right into the Standing Building Committee. I don't see a liaison here from the Building Committee. That's okay. I was looking, just a couple of things to note, maybe for us as well as the viewing audience. Noticed under discuss for possible action, update on performance contracting. This was a question that actually came up regarding the streetlights. And I thought that the streetlights were possibly going to be owned by the town, but it sounds like they are going to be owned by the town based on the performance contracting.
We are proceeding with that process now with Eversource.
That's great. Okay.
There's one challenge.
Yeah.
The town engineer has potentially identified the need for 3 additional streetlights somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to see how we're going to work that with the contract with JCI. Their recommendation is that we allow them to purchase and install and then those become ours.
Okay. All right, good. Right below that, regarding the HVAC upgrades at Baldwin, there was some commentary here about the 2 pumps that needed to be replaced. Just for clarification in this, the architect had provided a proposal to do the work, but that was only for the design services. And then it was clarified that the pumps actually are $8,000 apiece. So that was something I just wanted to confirm we all understood. It's just design, not.
And then they jumped to item 16.
Yeah, they had jumped. Yeah, they jumped around because they had representatives there. I wanted to get them out.
I had a question about item 16.
Trying to find it. Where was? Oh, yeah.
It's right after 4.
Under. Okay, you're on the first page. Okay.
Right.
Yep. New business. Yeah. Go ahead. 16.
My question was, that they had a problem with one of the units of the HVAC, but as this unfolds, they're talking about replacing all 3.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where this is at? So this looks like a $100,000 expenditure.
Well, one of the units failed. They're all the same ages, so
Right.
they were thinking they better replace all 3 of the remaining units.
Is that their decision?
Well,
So I think there's 4 altogether, right?
there were 4. 1 failed. Yeah.
You're
They-
right.
Yeah, I'm just glancing at this. They had they solicited for bids for the 3 remaining units, and it was low bid of $70,800. If they had to do the refrigeration pipe replacement, that would be an additional $26,700, which is going to the year 100,000 you just commented
Yeah.
on. But that's not something they're going to be able to determine until they get in there. So. Now, is that, further on, they approved it. So yes, that's the direction. They're gonna move forward with replacing the 3 units.
But they just approved the 70,800.
They just,
Right.
that's
not-
it,
Not the line replacement.
right. If that work has to get done,
And
then
they'll
that would
cross
be an
bridge
additional
if they
cost.
need to, right?
But
Exactly.
that's a recommendation from the vendor,
Right.
so the vendor has to.
The vendor will have to
Yeah.
figure that out once they get out there and open it up and
The
start
additional
looking at that.
$27,000.
Mhm.
Right,
Mhm.
correct. Again, the GHS turf field, progress is moving
Right.
along on that, and all things are pointing towards a use in the fall, so based on their progress at this particular moment.
Question on that one as well.
Yeah.
Considering all of the research and committee activities, are there any costs to the town on this one?
The consultant and the past legal fees.
That's it?
Yep. Everything else is under warranty, and materials and labor are all
Do we
covered.
know what that's gonna cost the vendors?
No, I don't necessarily know what that costs, but it'll probably be whatever the cost was before, and as long as they get it done, I don't know if we should worry about what the cost is.
As long as we're clear.
As long as we're clear, yeah. I don't know, I don't know what that number is.
But that was part of the agreement
That's-
that was
that's
reached
probably-
to resolve it.
Yeah, that's part of, we probably shouldn't even know what that number is. That's up to them. We just have our costs that have to do with the consultant and with the, legal fees that went along with the negotiations and the resolution of it.
And one last question
Mm-hmm.
on Melissa Jones, item 10.
Item 10. Yep.
The last sentence sounds a cautionary note.
Mhm.
Access to the work area is easier at Jones, and the equipment is smaller, so it's possible some of the work could be completed this summer. If it's not, does it interfere with the start of the school year?
I believe that the idea was to try to get work done this summer and next summer, but if they can expedite it, they will. But the equipment is, as it says here, the equipment is smaller, so they may be able to get some of the work done, but they would continue on
Some.
to the next, it would be continued on, I
And it
believe,
will
to
be
the next summer.
suspended until the next
Right,
window.
right. Just again, a audience plug for the Standing Building Committee. I see here the chairman's report that The Standing Building Committee Chairman, Mr. Ornstein, reported that he contacted our first selectman advising him that the committee still needs new members. So I'm throwing it out there. Anybody who's in the architecture, engineering, construction, attorney, construction law, you name it.
We've reached out to the respective parties as well.
Yes.
So we'll
They are
post-
struggling to meet quorums. And it's this very specialized set of skills for that committee, so it can be hard to find. Anybody else have anything on standing building?
Just to circle back on what we were talking about.
Yeah.
The Adams, or the Baldwin HVAC upgrades, it just, in addition to the pump, one of the reasons I'm looking at is that one of the pumps failed.
Right.
And the other one is of a similar vintage, so they're trying to address a need and also prevent a similar problem from happening down the road.
It's basically the same thing we just talked about with the police station.
Exactly.
A unit failed and they're all the same age, so it's just a matter of time before the rest of them go.
Right.
Okay, great. Thank you. Pension Committee minutes. And the investment report. I did have one question on pension. Near the bottom, it just says FIA provided a suggested investment policy statement for the committee to review. Is that something that's new, or is it a revised, updated? Because I would think that we would have an investment policy, but maybe they're just recommending an updated.
They have
Awesome.
made some recommendations based on our new investment strategies with the
Okay.
new company. So we'll
Okay.
be reviewing those at Wednesday morning's meeting.
Great, okay. Anything else on pension? Investment report?
They show in their summary, they talk of a meaningful savings of program expense. It seems to have been reduced by 14%.
As a result of the hiring of the new advisor.
Yeah. That's good.
That's all good? Okay. Item number 3 under correspondence, we have memorandum addressed to us from Mary Jane Malvasi, our finance director. I'll just read it real quick for the public in case we didn't get a chance to read it. This was dated April 2nd. It was a response to the June 30th, 2018 management letter that was done by Bloom Shapiro for our audit. It says, as a follow-up to your discussion of the management letter at your meeting on March 18th, 2019 with Bloom Shapiro, I wanted to update you on the status of 2 items in the letter. Under capital assets, it says, working with Munis, I was able to import each of the 122 infrastructure items previously maintained in an Excel spreadsheet. Moving forward, all capital assets will be maintained in the Munis system and depreciated annually. This will allow us to better manage our fixed assets and provide the reporting necessary for the audit in a timely manner. Cybersecurity, it says, as reported at the March meeting, we are already working to strengthen our IT infrastructure and better assess and manage cyber threats. In addition, the cybersecurity self-assessment form will be utilized as a tool to identify and evaluate exposures, hazards, and potential risks for breach. This assessment will allow us to identify and locate how information is secured and gain a clear understanding of potential exposures. If you have any further questions, please let me know. Thank you for this memo. Sounds very, very, very well done. So glad we're moving forward. Thanks for the update. Okay. Item number 4, review and accept report of expenditures for the Board of Education for April 2019.
You want to welcome the new member.
I'm going to welcome the new member. So we have Linda up here, of course. And we have our new member, Dr. Richard Hirsch. Good to have you.
Happy to be here.
Good.
Easy to say.
Usually
before
the first time up here.
You're happy.
We'll be easy on you.
This looks easier.
And you got Linda, yeah.
than running faculty meetings. believe me.
You could probably handle it just fine. So, floor is yours.
Did they already have the, did you?
Just handed them
Okay.
the projection memo and the tuition report.
There you go. Thank you.
So you have just been handed some of the highlights, which I'll go over in terms of the current budget situation.
Great.
Which is a continuation, really, of the report that was given last month. You can see that various items have either come in under or over budget. The salary projection, for example, is now coming in at $416,000, 851 under budget. Employee benefits is going to come in under budget by $36,117. On the other hand, purchase services projects a $452,000, $223 over budget. The tuition projection is that we're going to be over our tuition projections by $578,000. Supplies and materials will be under budget by $237,862. Capital costs projection is $177,585 under budget. And then the transportation is $207,272 over budget. These combination of over and under budgets results in a current projection of a deficit of $369,542. At our last board meeting, the sense was from the superintendent that this would probably go down, but that's indeterminate at the moment in terms of order of magnitude.
It has gone down since last month.
It went up from last month.
It went up from last month?
Yeah.
It was 250, 270 something.
Oh, okay.
It was 270, it was
I
250, it went up, it went down.
Okay, I'm thinking of the tuition number, what that was in
So
comparison.
tuition went down,
Yeah.
which is actually good news. That was
Right.
like 610 last month.
Went down about 30, yeah.
We had a couple changes. Students move out, they change facilities. We review services and decide that certain services aren't needed anymore, so we cut back. So that resulted in the changes in the tuition. Unfortunately, the other costs are driving this deficit.
I know this is an update from what we have. Because we have an April 2nd report, this is April 8th. So this is updated from what I was looking at. What's the current encumbered amount on the upkeep of buildings and grounds? Is it still
It's still
the
up
three,
there.
about $300,000 encumbered? 307?
Yes, it's around there. I was waiting for, we canceled a couple small ones since then. We just received the last bill for snow removal, we hope, no more snow. So we'll be canceling the balance of those encumbrances, which should be about 20 to 30,000, somewhere in there. And then we're gonna start looking at the rest of them again. Right now, facilities are saying that they still need those open.
Oh, I'm sure they do, right to the very end. Right, okay. Okay. So at this point, there's 3 months left. So,
And you'll get the rest of the ECS in May, right?
Yes.
Is that, you're still projecting that at 70?
We know where the ECS is going.
So the excess cost, I received something from the state that gave us a dollar amount, which actually makes it, looks like it's probably gonna be, may even be a little bit higher than 72, but I'm not sure if that's a final number yet, so I'm not sure. They have a copy of the report for Vernon. We really won't know until the payment comes in the end of May.
it's your estimation?
Yeah,
That's-
so 72 sounds like it's still a good number. It actually might still be a little bit conservative.
Even if it goes to 80%. You know, every little bit helps, but it's still not a huge dent.
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect it much between 72, 74% is what
Okay.
my guess at this point, my estimate.
Okay,
And
go ahead.
the warrants are relatively straightforward. I wanted to point out that on page 1, that first page is mostly reflection of paying tuition.
Yeah.
And on page 2, those are mostly for the HVAC work. So a lot of bills have come in for the work that's being done there. On page 7, there's been a payment of $20,000 to the town of Guilford. That's the annual payment for the police officer. Okay? And that's all I needed to highlight for the moment on those, on the warrants, unless you have other questions.
Did we want to do one?
If we're on them, that's
Okay,
fine, yeah.
sure. I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
There's one for college internship program. Is that, what is that?
It's actually for a.
3
spec-
items, but,
Yeah, it's for a special education student. It's not a college, it's not interns.
okay.
It's
This is the name of the program?
it's the name of the program, and it's for a special education student.
Okay. And then a couple lines down, there were two line entries, but a number of dates for executive coaching. What was that related to?
That is executive coaching for a principal.
Okay.
And it's to help one of the newer principals.
Is that going to be an ongoing throughout the year, or, or is it just these?
We have paid some other bills prior to this. I'm not sure how long this is going to continue, if it's going to go for the year.
Okay. And then I had one other, not questioning the expense, but just the results from it. The substitute, or I'm assuming it's sub-custodian advertisement. That's for a substitute custodian. Any luck with responses to that?
They did do a number of interviews. I believe they have 1 or 2 that they're trying to bring on board. I wasn't part of that interview, but I've heard it sounded like there were a couple
Great.
that we could bring in.
I know that's been an issue in the past, so.
Yes.
I had a small question on warrants. Bottom of page 3, there's a deposit to a venue for an event on May 29th.
That's going to be a pass-through. We are going to get reimbursed from that.
Okay.
That is for the retirement party for Dr. Keene, and it's just a pass-through.
Got it, okay.
But we had to pay the deposit or we'd lose the facility, so we were paying it, and then we're gonna get the money back from.
Okay.
I see on page 7, $20,000 for a school resource officer. Could you explain that one?
Yes, that's the officer that is in the high school and goes around to the other schools. We pay a portion of that police officer's salary. It was an agreement that was made with the town a couple of years ago that we would pay a portion of the salary. It used to be provided, and now we pay a portion. It's just to have an officer in the schools.
Does it get redeposited through the police budget in any way?
It's an offset to the salary line in the police budget on the town side.
Okay, let's see, anything else on warrants?
I see legal is high.
Yes.
Yes.
Legal's
We had,
been high, yeah.
some of it was for negotiations that went a little longer. Some of it, most of it's for special education.
Oh, I know, and I had, under employee benefits, and we probably discussed this before, but unemployment and workers' comp were both higher than, well, workers' comp wasn't from last year, but,
Right. Workers' comp is done for the year. We've made
We're all set with that.
We've done our fourth quarter payment, and we
Okay.
paid a little bit after the audit, so workmen's comp
okay, so
is
we're,
done.
okay,
That's
so,
more of a timing issue than,
yeah, okay. And then, yeah, unemployment.
Unemployment, we've had a couple that have been on there for a while. And the weird part is, we just received February's bill, or what would have been for February's payments, and it was 0. So the bills had been running probably an average of almost $5,000 a month, and then February was 0. So I'm afraid March's is gonna be a high one.
Because they just didn't, it didn't go on a
Yeah,
tracking for
but
February.
it's just, it's based on the number of people claiming, and you know, we get, a teacher could be on for a while, we get a portion of a substitute, we get a portion of a coach.
Yeah, no, it can be a tough one to predict.
Yeah, it's
I
a
just,
tough one
I
to
saw it was
predict.
trending, like last year at this time was 15%,
Yeah,
which was such
we had
a,
a couple really good
difference.
years, and then this year, it's just not
okay,
trending well.
all right. That was all I had for that. Anything else on the financials?
I have something on the committees.
You can go, yeah, we can go to committees,
that?
minutes, yeah, sure.
Operations Committee, one thing caught my eye on item 8, the March 11th Operations Committee.
I'm sorry, which item? 8?
Item 8, yeah, about claims being denied on the basis of the facility not being approved by the state. Could you explain that one?
All right,
I mean, are
I'll do
we-
this as carefully as I can, because this is having to do
Confidential,
with
yes, but
a special ed facility. So, there is a list of approved facilities in the state.
right.
And if we have a student at a facility that is not on that list, the state can deny us any excess cost reimbursement for that facility. And that's what is happening on this one. We do currently have our lawyer looking at it, but as of right now, the state is not approving the facility.
And apparently there've been no outplacements since October? Is that record still holding?
Yep. Yes.
does the state kind of, I know that there had been at least one instance where there was, needs had been approved in one year by the state, but essentially the same circumstances were not allowed by the state the following year. Is this a similar dynamic here where
Yes, it is.
the facility was A-OK last year and now
Yes.
it's not? Okay.
But they have to go through that every year, the facility.
Okay.
So it's up to them to get the accreditation.
Right. So I'm not sure exactly what circumstances changed and why the state is saying no now and it was okay before, but it's no now.
Right.
Just
Okay.
a final addenda on the legal question I raised earlier. If you're reporting 92% expended and encumbered through March, is it going to go over 100%?
Oh, yes.
In other words, there are issues in legal that are still to be
Yes.
resolved.
So we're going to be starting negotiations with another union. We've had some small labor issues we've had to use the lawyers for, and special education legal. So the three of them combined are running legal over budget.
Seeing that we're on operations,
Okay.
there was some discussion under item 6 regarding pre-K tuition increasing.
Yes.
Hadn't been raised in 5 years, and there was, I guess, there was some indication here about increasing over a period of 3 years. Knowing that these minutes are a little bit delayed by the time we get them, have those proposals been received? You don't have to necessarily go into details if you're still working them out, but,
No, the board voted at their meeting to do a 10% increase
okay.
for the 1920 school year and look at it again in the fall, well, winter time, to look at.
So it's just a 1 year?
It's just a 1 year.
And then
look
they'll
at it.
reevaluate?
We'll reevaluate for coming years.
Okay. Anything else on operations or any other meeting minutes for that
Yeah,
matter?
on the Board of Education meeting, there's been talk around this table and elsewhere about regionalization. We've had those conversations up and down for years. And I see that on page 1 of the Board of Ed meeting on March 11th, in response to a question raised by Mr. Sands, Representative Scanlon clarified the 2 different bills concerning regionalization have received some attention. And I wondered if any of this regionalization talk or proposal writing will affect us. Are we responding to any of this? Does anybody know?
They have to get voted on through the I mean, they have to get, I don't even know if they're voted at a committee yet, and then they'd go to the House and then the Senate.
These are mostly for small districts.
For, I think
It's
it's
in committee.
populations under 40,000 or schools
Yeah.
Right.
with
It's under
2,000.
2,000 or
Under
40,000.
40,000. And one for districts under 2,000. So these do not affect us.
Well, population's
They-
under
they
40 it does,
could.
but it's
Population is 40,000.
not getting a lot of legs.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right now, so-
It hasn't been brought
Mm-hmm.
out of committee
Right.
to the General Assembly, so it's still in the Education Committee.
It's one of those ideas or proposals that's out there to, I don't want to say force, but
It's a nudge.
It's a
nudge.
nudge.
I like that. See, that's why you're at this table now. To nudge towns, municipalities to look to regionalize services. To do that it's just not getting a lot of legs. And there's been a lot of, and I know just in Fairfield County and other parts of the state, there have been meetings with the governor and legislators and superintendents and principal, that it's just, the feedback is, we're already regionalizing. We're already doing a
Some
lot
places have
with
already
our,
done it, right.
with our neighbors. And to then force populations or students to mesh together into different communities with all these, already built facilities and a curriculum, and it's gonna actually cost more, they're finding out. It's not the idea that some legislators thought it would be, so it's just not getting any legs
I
right
think
now.
it was the governor's proposal first, and then there were 2 bills that gained traction.
Yeah, that gained traction from the governor's thoughts. Matt, go ahead.
The bills that are being considered are largely coming out of the very small rural communities in the state where it costs the equivalent of a college education to educate a kid. I've had an opportunity at a CCM meeting to talk to the first selectman in Scotland, who's in a regional school district of 200 kids. And the amount of money they're spending for the infrastructure, they just don't have the economies of scale, so they're spending massive amounts of money. And there are several of these districts that are doing the same thing. In large fashion, that's why we have regional school districts throughout the state. I believe there are 13 of them, or is it 17 of them? I think it's 17. It's 17 throughout the state, designed just to do exactly that. Now, apparently, some of these real small ones are facing these challenges because there just isn't the population density within a geographic area that makes sense to do it. And in large measure, the expectation was that the true savings were going to come from the administration, and that one superintendent was going to be responsible for multiple school districts. Well, that will, what they're discovering is that's going to entail having assistant superintendents in each of the respective districts, or because it doesn't scale as easily as some of the theorists have produced. And there's a guy that knows more about education than I do, and he could probably tell you about it.
But you're attending the CCM meetings and you're kind of living it right now, so I
Yeah,
appreciate the explanation. I knew it was something along what I was saying, but that's a better.
But they're also talking
better
about,
detail.
more wisely, how do you create an incentive system so that people, if they see a need, if communities say, we've got to do something, and there can be an incentive or reward for doing that, that's better than forcing all the rest of us to falsely consider the issue when it doesn't work.
Right.
So if it comes out to be that way, it'll be a win-win.
And And you have significant challenges with some of these communities in terms of the distance that it would take in order to create real efficiencies. You got to start talking about building larger schools to service a region. And as you start to do that, the travel time, they complain about kids being on a bus for 35 minutes in this community. Imagine if we were sending, a third of our students or a quarter of our students up to Durham for a regional school. Imagine the outcry that would happen in the community.
Okay. Anything else on the meeting minutes? 3:11, 3:23, 5. That was a workshop, so. Don't think I have anything else.
No, that looks like it.
Okay, Jeff, Megan, Veronica, all good? Painless. See how that went? That being said, do I hear a motion to accept the report of expenditures of the Board of Ed for the month of March 2019 in the amount of $6,597,793.55?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions, recusals?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Item number 5, review and approve expenditures for the town government for April 2019. Mary Jane.
Good evening. We can start with revenue.
Sure.
To see that our revenue jumped up to 99.1% this month. Specifically, if we look at tax collection, we did have a banner month in March, bringing in over $850,000, which brought them over the 100%, which we typically see at this point. From the last month, I was looking for at least $400,000, so that has come into our favor. We have yet to receive our last ECS payment, but when we do, it'll bring that line item over by $235,000 based on our budget, and that's not counting the excess costs that's going to go back to the Board of Ed. So between the ECS money, interest earnings, and tax collection, I'm estimating approximately $1 million surplus in revenue at year end at this point. There are some other plus and minuses of some of the smaller line items, but at this point, approximately $1 million in revenue, mainly made up of those 3 line items.
I noticed that both police and fire are generating revenue at a higher percentage than they were last year. Is that because of the billing software?
For the fire department, yes. It's how we're able to fax in our information and get reimbursed on a quicker rate. So that historically was a month behind,
Right.
and we've been able to stay pretty current with that. So we've seen that pretty much this entire fiscal year, where fire has been on target instead of that month behind.
How about on the police side? Any reason for that? Just increased
Just,
service calls?
yeah,
or things like that?
just normal operations.
Okay.
Did you mention that finance was one of those items too? Just note the three items.
Well, I said interest earnings, yeah, that's
Interest earning,
finance,
okay.
sorry.
Yeah, my head was thinking of something else.
Yeah, sorry.
Same thing, okay.
I should have given myself the credit, finance.
All right, so
Any other questions on revenue?
good news on that, yes. All set.
Okay, if we move on to expenditures, we're with the Board of Ed primarily right at 75% expended, right where we should be at this time of year. One line item I want to discuss is the apparent overage in the insurance line. That's really just a number, a paper number at the moment. We do have pending transfers that will come in by the end of the year from the waste transfer station and the library to cover the costs associated with insurance for those facilities. We typically wait until the end of the year to make those transfers. Between those two, we estimate about $125,000. So we do not expect at year end that insurance line to be over, even though it's looking that way right now. Same with the capital and the debt line items, which we've talked about in the past. We do have pending transfers that will be coming in to cover those overages as well. So, and the expenditures, there are a few departments that I am watching to be sure that they don't go over budget. Each of the ones that we kind of anticipate small overages are expected to be covered by other departments. I did send an email to all our department heads to watch their bottom lines and to notify me of anything that they know about that might put their budget over by year end, things that I might not be aware of. But that being said, the Board of Ed does, at the moment, have a $370,000 expected overage, but not counting that, I do anticipate at this point the town's expenditure side to be virtually flat. That's where I'm projecting at this point. Each month we get a little closer to that, but on the expenditure side, we're going to be.
What about fire? Fire is 81%.
Correct. They're one that I'm projecting to be slightly over, but not by much. But we're watching it very closely.
And what about communications? Because that
Communications.
got a good increase at this budget.
Well,
I have communications, I think, estimated coming in about flat.
Oh,
I don't know any reason for that.
it looks like it might be, it's in the 70s, both of them, so it's maybe a little bit of
Correct.
timing.
no,
Yeah.
fire is 81.
I'm talking about communications.
Okay,
So
78.
we're watching them. I really don't, I hope they're not going to be going over, but we are watching them. Communications, not so much. Fire, we're really watching at this point.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm looking at building, but building was trending a little bit higher last year too. But building's also trending higher on the revenue side.
Correct.
So it's an offset.
The consultant line is over budget on the expenditure side, and the revenue is also over. So the billing department, I am expecting that to be over about $36,000, mainly because of that particular line item.
Right. Now everything else seems to be pretty much where it.
Yeah, but
Typically.
back to the fire department, there are. We do have the grant offset for the firemen, so that tends to fluctuate that grant, that department. So although it might look like it's trending over, we're, again, another budget that's going to come in close. As I explained to our department heads, as we start to work on our budgets and shrink our budgets and come up with all these efficiencies, it allows for less, what's the word I'm looking for? There's not a lot of surplus in our, in the budgets. Can't think of the word I'm trying to think of, but
Excess.
not really excess, but the ability to save money in one line and use it for another line, that kind of goes away. So
Fluff?
no.
That's a bad word.
None of those words. None of the flexibility. That's the word I was looking for.
There you go.
The flexibility in the budgets.
There you go.
We can't keep trees from falling, but I noticed that the number is getting real high.
Correct. Yes.
Where's that
Another one
going?
fell tonight.
Sorry?
Another one fell tonight.
Where?
Route
77.
77.
Bet you they're falling all over the place tonight. It's 30, 40 mile per hour winds tonight, so.
Wow.
Yep.
A big
And
one?
it,
Yeah, big one. Road is closed.
that is one of the budget lines that we did request an increase to
Yeah.
the budget because it's
How are we doing
just-
with that?
With what?
With the tree line, where is it?
Tree line is over budget at this point.
It is over.
But we put more in for next budget for next year.
We did.
Yeah.
How far over is it?
Well, I have to look.
Because I think on this one, on this report, you got over $20,000.
Okay, $20,000 it is then.
I'm not good with numbers.
I'm sorry, I didn't know what the amount over was.
Tree removal, 107%.
It's about $6,000 over.
But a
No,
fair
I
amount,
didn't
there's a fair amount of
see that.
encumbrance
I just
too.
looked at
Correct.
these warrants and they look,
Yep. No surprise. That's why we knew it was trending, and that's why we put more in the budget, so.
Right, and it was one of the line items we cut in the current budget, and we're finding that, made a difference.
Right.
But there is the encumbrance there, so it's possible we might not use all of it.
Okay, right. Anything else on, let's see, revenue expenditures?
I noticed that postage is
go ahead.
down considerably in the selectman's office. Is that something that's gonna remain at that rate?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we did reduce that in the next budget. We are finding postage is down, yes.
All right, why don't we go to warrants? Name it. You get to pick whatever one. There's special fund, there's the
Let's just
Whoever
go
has a
in
question,
order.
we'll
warrant
start
and
with one.
and the
Let's-
weekly, so,
Let's just start with special.
okay.
It's in order. so
You got,
just-
you got something for special?
I don't know.
Oh, all right. Well, you got to pick though, so.
Well, we went over the turf field already, so.
Yeah, I didn't see anything on here for special. Anybody have anything on special warrants? The warrant report?
I just went on the special warrants.
And sorry.
Nope, sorry, you can't. We already
Set you
passed
up.
it.
The pace has been picked up a little bit, so. So just to go back to the turf field, is this the last expense we're gonna have with regard to it, with this Castle Booze expense? No?
They're in the process of construction.
Manage the engineering throughout the construction of the project.
So once it's finished, then we'll be done too.
We'll be seeing these similar payments on a regular basis every month,
Until the project is completed, that's right.
which is, yeah.
You want to
But
make sure
it's
it's
gonna-
done properly.
And I don't know if anybody's been up there lately, but they're moving. And
They want to get in.
they have
As you said
vehicles-
last month, they want to get in, they want to get out.
They have vehicles there
Yep.
up until 7 o'clock at night. They were working on a Sunday, particularly the contractor, who has turned out to be very professional in this. They're anxious to get this job done because it's on their dime.
Do you know if it's been applicable to other municipalities that may have faced a similar problem, if they've learned something from this?
There was anecdotal information about other fields that had failures with similar materials, similar design, but those discussions were largely the part of mediation and not at liberty to discuss. I will tell you, because it's freedom of information, we received an FOI request from a community in Massachusetts looking for the documents that our consulting firm, Castle Booze, had put together related to the cause, their assumption of the cause of the problem. So
Hopefully
there are other
Hopefully-
people,
yeah.
this has garnered some attention.
Good.
As you can well imagine, in this case, there are 4 contractors, plus an engineering firm, who are loath to have to fill out the next RFP bid document and say they have a pending claim, litigation, relative to their services.
Right.
So, these folks they
They're
came to the
motivated.
table. They're motivated, that's right.
Go ahead.
Much like buildings and stuff where they have a clerk of the works, is there such a thing for something like a project like that?
That's what our engineering firm is doing.
That's Castle Booze.
Yeah, that's Castle Booze.
So, that, because what kind of concerns me is if they're going at the rate of speed that you're indicating that they are, because their point of view, you want to make sure somebody's watching our back.
Speed in this case revolves around length of workday, number of resources that they're putting on it that they normally wouldn't. Instead of putting, one crew out here, they've got 2 crews. That's what I meant by speed. I'm not talking about speed in terms of
Doing something fast.
we're not measuring twice.
Right, right. The terminology used to be called clerk of the works. You would hire somebody, and in this case, you're hiring a consultant that's usually called an OPM, or an owner's project manager. So or owner's rep, an
I
OR.
just wanna
So they're all
make
the
sure
same thing,
somebody's-
it's just a different term, but that's
Somebody's
what Castle
watching
Blues is doing.
Guilford's back.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
what
okay.
the consultant is doing. And that's the one of the only associated costs that we have with this project, but we want to have it done right, so. Okay, anything else on warrants? Medical? We rebounded from not so good last month to a better month.
We did have a low month
March?
in March. Even between the claims and the administration costs, we were still below our monthly estimates. Still showing a $960,000 surplus on the expenditure side. Pretty flat on the revenue side. So I have a projected surplus of just shy of $950,000, or an estimated fund balance at the end of the year, $4.7 million. Under catastrophic claims, we are close to being even to the premium that we've paid. We're only $200,000 short of that at this time, with 3 more months to go. So odds are we will surpass that.
Right. And it's as healthy as it is. We'll track that and see where we are at the end of the year. I'm going to go over a little bit on the OPEB tonight. I'll go over that in old business. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, interestingly enough, CCM sent a survey out to all municipalities who have self-funded medical, asking specifically about fund balance and how it's handled. They're doing it for another community, but I did ask to see the results so
Good.
they could
Good.
see
And
what
I'm
other
sure you'll share
communities
them
are
when you
doing.
have them.
I would love to share that
Great.
with you.
Great, okay. Capital Fund. So we got both reports. Thank you. I seem to every time, and we got both of those, and we have the Long Hill Road as well. So we have all 3 of those reports. I guess when I looked at, just looking at the summary of the multi-year school capital projects, always have a tendency to look at the older bond questions or the projects under the resolutions. And for example, looking at the 2011, 2012 for the school, I gotta blow it out, I can't, having a party. It's this
School
big
classroom
sheet
and
that's
space
all on this little
renovation.
screen. So
School classroom and space renovations.
So something like that, which has an available balance of just short of $20,000. Is that something that, at this particular moment, I'm looking at those line items, and it doesn't look like any of those line items are going to be for $19,000 or $20,000. If they haven't been done so far, are those being considered for closure?
Absolutely. We're first looking to close some of our even older bonds that have been, the work has all been stopped for all of them, but they've never been closed out, so we're working on those first. Then we're going to move on to these. I've already contacted Cliff and the department heads on the town side for some of these old ones, regarding using them and finding out if they're closed. So we're going to be working on that. So the first round of closure will be the really, really old ones, literally going back to 2003 through 2009 or something like that. Some really old ones that we just never had closed out. So we're taking care of those this year. Then we'll systematically work on these just for my sanity, it's better to get these off of here.
I just want to be
Yes.
clear, it's not hurting us at all. It's
It is
just
not,
when we look,
no.
all it is they're open, and
Correct.
if they don't need to be open, then we close them. It's not doing anything.
Exactly
It
right.
just, there were 5 on the school report that seemed to have, that they were older, but they had balances of the 20 I said, one is about 40.
One is 200,000.
Right. One of the things that
But you're getting to it.
But another thing I'm looking at on the school side is when the school puts in their funding request or their authorization request, they always include issuance costs, and I'm finding that not always did we pay for issuance costs from these line items, so I'm currently reviewing that at this point. So that $20,000 we may use that to offset some issuance costs for that particular bond, saving us for another one. So I'm looking into that.
And then there's 2 here that have values that are negative.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because we're expecting some sort of reimbursement, auditing payment? Because there were 2 here that have outstanding, again, it's available balance and it says 20,000. It looks like it's over 20, the other one is over 46,000.
Right, so
And I'm just wondering how that works.
So one of 2 things we can do with
Yep.
that, when we go out to bond, we could include that 20,000, or as we're closing out these other bonds,
Mhm.
we can transfer funds from one to the other. So I'm leaving those as they are right now until we make a final determination of what, at the time that they'll be closed out. So the
Okay.
Board of Selectmen have the authority to do that.
Okay.
So if we have 20,000 extra, available in
If you
one,
look
we
at
can.
the 5 I'm looking at, if it comes right down to 5, almost, they equal each other out.
Correct, that's why they're kind of sitting there right now, as they are,
Okay.
but, absolutely, it is my goal to keep up on that, on a regular basis.
Okay. Just looking at the town side, I was looking at the same thing, just the age of them and the balance
Mm-hmm.
left, and I really don't have any questions.
We'll go back to the schools.
No, we could go back, on the town side, it seemed like, again, same, not as many as on the school side,
Mhm.
because there's a lot more projects embedded in those bond questions, but go ahead, Ken, if you want to go back.
Yeah, we'll go back to the 2011, 2012. We have items in the original budget for over $200,000 for bathroom renovations. Did that need disappear, or has it been absorbed in some other
No, it's spent.
I
activity?
think
It was
It's
it's
spent.
been done.
It was expended?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
the original
Yeah.
budget,
Oh,
and
yeah.
there's an available balance.
Yeah.
Right, so expended 245,000,
Okay.
and so within the authorization.
There was a reallocation.
There was already a reallocation
I
made.
see.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so it was actually, after the reallocation, it was actually under
There's
the
still,
number.
right.
Still money left. Okay. Is there anything else on capital fund?
I just would
Or
like to
go-
note on the Long Hill Road.
Long Hill Road, go ahead.
That there is a $327,000 balance due in from grants, specifically for things that have been deemed ineligible, and I am working with the state on an invoice-by-invoice basis now that we are complete with the grant. Sometimes all that means is we've hit a threshold in one budget item and we need to adjust the budget in order to get, because if we have a $200,000 line item in, like, say, engineering, once we hit 200,000, they'll know every penny over that is ineligible. So we might have to adjust the budgets, but I am working with the state, trying to, get as much of that $327,000 reimbursed to us from them.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see, anything else for Mary Jane in town? Okay. If not, like a motion to approve the report of expenditures of the town for the month of March 2019 in the amount of $2,381,751.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Recusals? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 6, consider and take appropriate action on fiscal year 2019-2020 budget. So basically, this is that famous time of year we get to set the mill rate, based on the fact that the budget did pass at referendum on April 9th. And we have done all of our calculations and figured out what the projected mill rate would be based on the revenue projections and the budget that was approved at referendum. I want to have a discussion, if I could, about where we stand amongst the board regarding where we go with the mill rate, because last year we had the option of adding to the revenue. Just based on, we felt that we had more information to be able to do that, which lowered the mill rate the percentage increase in the mill rate itself a little bit. So I was looking at the numbers, and just where we're going right now is a projected mill rate going from 31.28 to 32.03. And that would be a mill rate increase based on the budget approved at referendum and our revenue estimates. That would be a 2.41% increase. I was hoping that there would be a little bit more information coming into this meeting from our legislators, from different factions, about where we would stand with ECS and where we stand with the teacher's retirement contribution. I will tell you, unfortunately, I don't think I've got much more information. I don't know if you've heard anything as board members, but there hasn't been too much except for the teacher's retirement contribution not necessarily being favored. And I believe not seriously being considered, but it may be a negotiating factor, so it's not dead yet. That being said, I definitely don't know about the ECS. No one does, and where that's going to go, and we still have basically, for lack of 6 weeks left before any budget is out there. So as much as I would love to look at a projected mill rate less than what we thought it could be, I think we've been kind of on the line of being prudent and being conservative. There aren't very many areas to go. Looking at interest income, I took a look at that. We had an adopted budget last year of 80. We have a projected revenue of 475. I think we're actually I think we're at 450 now. So being at 450, it's, the projected revenue amount of 475 is doable for this year. We put a budget in of 425. Even if we added what the projected amount is this year and zeroed it out and said, okay, well, 475 next year, it's only $50,000. So we're not really making a huge impact. So I just wanted to tell you all that looking at this and setting a mill rate, I think we should probably just stick with where we are. I want to know if anybody had any thoughts about that. I waited right to the very end to look at the revenue numbers and see where we might stand if we had better information, and we just don't. We're no different where we were a month ago when we decided the revenue budget, and now we have a expenditure budget that's been approved. So my recommendation is to stick with the projected mill rate that we had during our deliberations, which would be at 32.03, based on what we know today. Anybody? Thoughts? Agreement?
Can I ask
Non-agreement?
a crazy question?
Ask a crazy question.
Is there any way we could use some of the surplus to lower the mill rate at the end of the year?
As soon as we start doing that, then
Even a
as
portion of it?
as I've always heard, now you're looking for it next year. you know, one of the things that I do keep hearing is on the teacher's retirement. You know, even if we had a 90% chance of that not going through, and you take the 166 out, that let's just say we're not going to pay. Yeah, it would bring the projected mill rate down to 31.98. So you're talking about a 0.05 difference. You know, that being said, though, there's a good chance that if it doesn't happen this year, Veronica, I think a lot of us were saying the same. If it doesn't happen this year, it's a really good shot that it's going to happen next year, and we should just be prepared to not have it in there. It's crossed my mind as well, Megan, about, you know, we have some pretty healthy surpluses,
Throwing it out there.
but then we start trying to incorporate that into lowering the mill rate, and it's just, now we're going to be put in a position next year. I'd rather be in a position of putting something in the unassigned and then being able to redesignate that and allocate it to something that we need. But
And for
not.
the benefit of the public, we can't re-look at the mill rate once we get more information. The mill rate needs to be set because we have tax bills
That's right.
and so forth
No,
to
we-
send out. I'm just saying that for the benefit of the public.
Right.
So they understand.
Well,
It's not like
we
something we
have
can
to
go
set
back
it
and look
tonight.
at.
We have to set it, we have to
Yeah,
set it
by
within 10
charter,
days.
we have to set it.
So so I'm just having the discussion to make sure that it's clear and it's open, as, you know, we're all having the discussion and the public understands that, you know, yes, there was a consideration. We did it last year that we put a little bit more revenue in, which helped bring the mill rate a little bit further down. Doing it from a 32.03 to what would be taking the teacher's retirement out and going to 31.98, it's not a huge difference.
Really significant.
It goes from 2.41% to 2.23%, and I know we could spin these numbers any way imaginable, but ultimately, I think we need to be safe and conservative and prudent, and that's just my opinion. That's why I'm asking all of you what you think. So,
It seems to me that, you know, with the variables that we've got from Hartford in terms of teachers' pension and the grant money that the town may receive, it's difficult for us to come up with a number that we'd feel comfortable with contributing to lower the mill rate, at least from my perspective. We just heard earlier this evening how, you know, the Board of Education is going to struggle to remain on budget this year with the figures that they've presented. That's this year. We don't know what next year is going to bring with regard to the various services that the students are going to need, whether it's in transportation costs or outplacements. We also don't know what interest rates are going to do. I mean, they've been historically low and they could drop lower, and so the return that we get from the funds that we're investing or we're putting in the bank could be lower than what we're projecting. And so while the temptation is to get the mill rate at a level below that 32 figure, and it'd certainly be attractive, I think you run the risk if you dip into the fund balance to keep that from happening of, well, not only have we artificially lowered it by, you know, yes, we're taking taxpayer dollars and hopefully generating a savings for them next year, but now we've lowered the fund balance, and at some point we'll have to recapture that as our expenses go up year after year. And so I think that as attractive as it may be, I just don't think for the amount that we're going to realize in terms of a savings, it's worthwhile. But
Yeah, I think we should leave
that's
where
my
it is.
perspective.
and it's
I
a
go with
question,
you.
and it's a question that you asked that I'm sure a lot of other people are asking.
Yeah,
that.
and
So,
partly asked because I think the general public's gonna ask that.
That's-
Right.
So that was,
I wasn't
yeah.
singling you out.
Right.
I was just saying that's a concern.
Yeah.
right. Okay, so, and just, Jeff, to go to your point, you know, we did hear Mary Jane say on the revenue side, you know, we're looking at $1 million. We're also looking at a pretty big hit on the Board of Ed side and what they've had to deal with on special education and tuition. And these are things that we can't predict. They've been always impossible to predict.
That's an extremely volatile line item
So-
that nobody can accurately predict year after year. And I think the Board of Ed's done a great job at trying to minimize the number of outplacements, but even with that, it's just, it's such a moving target that I'm really uncomfortable, you know, taking money out of the undesignated fund balance to offset the mill rate, so.
We have, and there's two things that are in the back of my head thinking about this, is that you've got, first of all, we as a board and as a town have a policy in terms of where we want our unassigned fund balance. We have to keep cognizant of that percentage and be sure that we're in a good, we don't lose ground. We've gained a lot of ground over the past few years. I'd hate to see that start to lose ground because, yes, the budgets get a little bigger and then we're not putting as much in to be able to have that percentage. And what I'm about to mention now on the under old business is, and it's going to be very, very brief, is the OPEB memo that we received. And I'll go over that in old business. But that's another thing that, by the way, we might have some surplus in medical that looks really good, but we need to get something established in the OPEB. And I think we keep hearing that from the board. We hear that from the town. Those are two major issues, policy and reval.
And we didn't budget for reval.
That's a very good point. Matt, yes.
I would agree with the fact that you're taking, we don't know anything better today than we did a month ago when you guys made the decision, which I thought was prudent in terms of accommodating the state's potential cuts. And it was borne out in the referendum. We had the largest margin of victory on a referendum in my memory. And I think in large measure that was to the honesty and the conservative nature that you utilized in setting that in setting that precedent. As to, I also agree, as to the usage of fund balance to offset operating revenues, or to supplement operating revenues, the point's been made. Yeah, it's a nice fix for 1 year, but the following year, you need to be able to allocate the same amount. Otherwise, you need to be able to go find another source. And as you were just mentioning, there are other ways to save taxpayers through the use of some of these surplus funds. We have done that. You're going to be asked to do it. You have been asked to do it with the OPEB out of the medical account. Mary Jane just mentioned that there's a potential of $1 million in excess revenues. Well, in order to keep our 10% fund balance at that level, we only need about 300,000 of that to maintain that level. Okay, so that gives you the opportunity to do something with that other 700,000, either to grow it beyond the 10%, or to reallocate it to do something like lessen the burden down the road for taxpayers in terms of one-time events. The reval is one you just mentioned. OPEB benefits are eventually going to catch up to this community. If you could diminish in future generations the obligation, that's helpful. And if you could do something with pension money, pension contributions like the Board of Ed did last year, that's also helpful. Yeah. I will also suggest that you need to be prepared if the Board of Education comes back to you and says, we're $300,000 short. You need a place to go find that. Yeah. And I think last year we talked that collectively the three boards should have a discussion about where that comes from, particularly if it's going to come out of a line item like health insurance, right, which we may or may not be able to utilize based on the spirit of the contributions that have been made to that fund.
Okay. Thank you. So, with that being said, I would like to make a motion, or entertain a motion, to set the mill rate for fiscal year 2019, 2020 at 32.03.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all. Item number, I almost skipped committee reports. Item number 7, building permit report. Anything on that? If not, item number 8, old business. All I really wanted to mention is that Mary Jane did forward I guess a letter or memo from Shipman and Goodwin regarding the establishment of an OPEB trust. I'm first of all, I just want to make sure everyone received it.
No.
I would,
I don't recall receiving.
it was sent by email. It wasn't part of our package. So it was sent by email. If, I'll resend it. It's not a problem. And really what it was action steps. The one question I had about it, Mary Jane, was this is the action steps Shipman and Goodwin were looking at that they needed to do, right? I mean, it's us also, we as well, but because it says in response to your recent inquiry, I'm providing you with the following list of steps for establishing. It's for them and us to work together to establish this trust, correct?
Absolutely.
They would be working with us on this. Yeah.
Correct,
Okay.
yeah, they'd be working with us and closely with our, with FIA, who is our new pension consultants. As I've
Right.
mentioned in the past,
Right.
one of the reasons they were one of my top picks was their experience with the establishment of such a fund.
Okay. So what I'm going to request, because we're short 2 of our members tonight, I would like to try to have our entire board here to have this discussion. So why don't we make sure we read the memo? I would like to, if we could, maybe put it under, literally as an agenda item under old business for establishment of OPEB trust. Is that,
We have to write it first.
is that something?
I think it might be a little premature.
A little premature?
Yeah, I think,
If you're looking for the spirit of the board
Yeah.
to ask that I move forward, that's one thing, but we're not quite ready to establish anything yet. There are a lot of decisions to be made.
So it's just maybe just discussion of the process
Right,
of
whether or
going
not
through
you
it.
want
Okay.
me to move forward with it, we have to work with the Board of Education.
Okay.
There are a lot of questions on the table that I haven't even begun to explore until we get to that step where somebody says, go do it.
Yeah. No, in fact, now I'm thinking about it, misstated that. I mean, I knew the establishment isn't going to happen overnight, so discussion about the establishment of the direction and progress of, or process of an OPEB.
Yeah, I don't know how in-depth you want to be, if you want me to have any professionals. I am not professional, although I've been, for the past year, I've done nothing
Well,
but.
you-
play one on TV.
I would like to
study this.
have the discussion with the full, if I can, with the full board, with all of us here, and then we provide
If you-
direction
if you
from
need-
that.
Right, if you have some questions or if you need
Yeah, we don't
some
need to have
further,
anybody
then
here
we
for that.
can- Then we can always do that.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. Okay. Anything else under old business? Item 9, new business. Anything under new business? And item 10, public forum. That's it. I guess we got everybody. We heard everybody in the audience, so. Okay. That, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.